Can I tell you that I have butterflies for the first time in a long time? Doing a new show feels good. Feels good. If you're not a little scared, you're not pushing yourself far enough.
I was about to say, if you're not scared, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yep. Welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Skybox. I am your host, Brian Barnett.
I'm Will Berger. Hi.
It's me, it's the MGE, Lucas White.
Welcome. Patreon backers, thank you so much. We're going to have a fun time tonight. This is our kind of after hours, unplugged, amped up podcast. Into the Skybox, I talk to writers about what they do on the site. This is Beyond the Skybox. There are no limits. We can talk about anything. We can talk about what's going on in the industry. We can talk about what we've been playing. It's going to be kind of a grab bag of a lot of different things. Since this is the first episode, we're going to tell you a little bit about the history behind us creating the site. We're going to tell you a little about what you can expect from the show, and we're going to answer some backer questions that were submitted in the lead up to this episode.
Lord help us.
But first, let's introduce ourselves. I am Brian Barnett. I have run another podcast called The Platformers since 2017, maybe 2016. It's been like 8 years. It is about to celebrate its 350th episode. And other than that, I've been writing for IGN and GameSpot and Kotaku, going to trade shows and writing about games, talking about games, and just generally loving this whole genre. It's been going through some rough patches lately, and I definitely have my pet issues, which you will become intimately familiar with through my columns and through other stuff. But yeah, I've written guides, news, reviews, previews, all kinds of stuff. I've done just about everything you can do in this space, almost. But yeah, I like long walks on the beach and Metroid-style games. I'm not going to call them Metroidvanias because that's giving Castlevania too much credit.
That's facts.
So yeah, but that is me in brief. Will, introduce yourself to the wonderful people out there.
The wonderful people. All right, so hi, I'm Will Berger. I'm Skybox's editor-in-chief, one of the three lovely co-founders that you see here in front of you. I got my start in the business posting on like the GameSpot forums way back in the day, and people were like, wow, your opinions are good. You should write about games professionally. And mostly right now when I'm not doing stuff for Skybox, you can see me on Shack News or IGN, among various other places. I've also written for Unwinnable, Into the Spine, PC Gamer, done two page spreads for PC Gamer, Tech Radar, The Loadout, rest in peace, they're a good place. A lot of places. I am a fan of fighting games. I'm one of the business's premier fighting game sickos. Action games, anything that allows me to press buttons really fast in a very precise way. And I've been part of the Platformers for the last couple of years, and I'm trying to think of what else. I also like long walks on the beach, but my pleasures are a little more simple than that. I'm into fast cars, good booze, and wonderful company, all of which I have here tonight, except the car, which, maybe this week. So yeah, that's me.
He's never, Will has never met an aerial rave he didn't like.
That's true.
Also, I did not say I am Skybox's editor at large.
That's why I know. As soon as you said "oh shit," I was like, "Yeah, he forgot to give his title."
Yep, I did.
Oh, and before we turn it over to Lucas, I came up with the name Skybox, so that's my big contribution to the site.
It's the only contribution. He hasn't done anything. He's been coasting on those. He's been resting on those laurels ever since. And you know what? That's fine. That's enough.
Definitely never edited anything that has come from any people that have been published.
You can rest now, Will. You've done all you needed. You've done what you were born to do. Your legacy is secured.
All right. And last but not least,
Lucas.
Howdy. I'm Lucas White, managing editor. I hate the beach. The beach smells funny. It's hot outside. the
There's sand,
commerce
it's coarse and
surrounding it
rough,
is
and,
obnoxious. All of the street names are like starfish and lobster and shit. Like, I hate Virginia Beach specifically. I think is what I'm getting at.
Damn, dude.
He doesn't hate the concept
Neptune.
of the beach. He just hates this town.
He hates
Awful.
his specific beach. I mean, let's be real. I love the beach where I grew up. The beach where I live now fucking sucks. It's awful. You can get like flesh-eating bacteria and stuff from going in it and all kinds of
Jesus
diseases.
Christ.
Don't forget, it's the Gulf of America. It sucks. It sucks now.
Fair.
Used to be cool. Anyways,
let's see. It's 2025, so come October, this will be 15 years in the business for me. I started tiny indie websites. Then I ended up at like Cracked and Shonen Jump, Cheat Code Central. Kind of worked my way up to like I've written for Kotaku and PlayStation Lifestyle and Prima Games and Shack News, Game Informer. Just, you know, we all have a big old list of bylines. Not IGN though.
It's happening, brother. One day, it's happening.
But yeah, mostly like reviews. I feel like I'm one of the few people who actually has a good time writing reviews.
Lucas has like over 300 reviews on OpenCritic, which is crazy. I thought I had a lot at like 200. Lucas has like 150 more than me. This man,
he's a beast.
He is tireless.
It is my calling. I am not tireless. So yeah, I started as reviews editor, appropriately enough, Skybox, and then we did a little title shuffle, so now I'm managing editor.
I think I'm the only person whose title has not changed.
Yeah. We got yours right the first time.
Yes, that's true.
True.
Got it in one.
Nailed it.
We knew I was going to be meandering about doing God knows what, just lurking in the shadows like the gremlin I am.
Mm-hmm.
So we just knew that from the jump. So
got it right the first time.
It's true.
I don't remember exactly how I ended up in this group. I think Will and I just connected on the internet as like peers. And then I got laid off at Prima and ended up in that industry server. And we all just kind of got along, and I've been along for the ride ever since.
Yeah, all roads lead to me, I guess.
I know how I met Brian. I'm struggling to remember, and then not in a bad way. It just feels like I've known Lucas forever.
Yeah,
like
I think it was just like a drive-by Twitter mutual situation.
And then we hung out at PAX a couple years ago, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were in that group when we went to Boston, right? Where like we went to that or no. Because I was thinking like the first time, like Will, the first show that we went to together was the one in Boston where we met Jess for the first time. We met Justin in person for the first time. Lucas, you weren't in that group?
Mm-mm.
God,
Lucas
I feel like
we
were there.
This is not the first time Lucas and I have been at a PAX together. So was it West?
No.
This was not the first time.
Last time.
Yeah, last time. Okay, so this was like last
year.
It wasn't the first time, it was the last time. Oh no!
Oh yeah. We knew each other way before that, but it was just like, it's one of those things, like, you work a lot with people on the internet in this space. Like, a lot of the work is remote. Like, I don't know if you can see this behind me, but my cat is hanging out with my wife, who is playing Expedition 33. Like, a lot of the work is remote, right? And you can see, like, our tiny apartment that has too much stuff everywhere because I'm traveling too much. But, like, getting to meet your friends in person and hang out and, like, do silly shit, like karaoke, like, that's awesome, right? It's one of the benefits of trade shows. And, so, yeah, I think the first time Lucas and I ever met was 2 years ago at PAX East.
Yeah. Community has always been really important to me, and realizing very early on that how lonely I felt being a freelancer, and then creating a space where people could gather, that actually opened a lot of opportunities up for myself and for other people. So that feels like one of those like canon events You know, if you've watched the Spider-Verse movies or whatever, where it's like, oh, this is something, this is going to pivot a lot of fates. And thankfully, for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that, like, most everything that we've done, right? Like, from Golden Weeklies to, you know, if you're a Skybox reader, you don't know what that is. It's a fighting game tournament that I host for Games Press and people who are friends. That came out of Brian's Discord. This came out of Brian's Discord. And I can tell that story. I actually went back and found the actual post where we first started talking about this.
Oh, wow.
I came prepared, baby. I came prepared.
Yeah, hell yeah. We got the receipts. Will, he's got the receipts. You should know that about him.
It's true. So, I think that's all of us. Lucas, did you have any more about, like, who you are, what the people should know? Oh, here's one, because Lucas hasn't said it. Lucas is the premier JRPG sicko in the space.
This is true.
There is nobody that knows more.
Yeah, I guess if I were to talk about myself as a writer, I think, like, knowledge and history is really important. And just that seems to set me apart by default from a lot of the
That's
other...
interesting. I like this exercise that you've kicked off, Will. I like this exercise. That is definitely true of Lucas. Lucas is also someone... So I think we should do this for each of us. We should say what the other people are really good at. Okay. Lucas is the type of person where you can bring up some mechanic that's in a newer game, and he'll tell you like 3 or 4 games that did this like way before. You know, oh, this is actually from like a super niche Japan only RPG that was never localized. It was only played by like 300 people, and it came out in like 1992 or something like that on the Amiga. I don't even know if any. Don't check any of those facts because I'm not a facts guy. I'm a feelings guy. I'm a story guy. Will, I think. Oh no. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Lucas literally did this to me at PAX where we were talking about Romancing Saga. And so we're in the hotel room.
Oh, no.
And we're waiting on, basically, like, we're waiting on the Giant Bomb panel and at PAX. And he's just giving me, like, the long history of this really cool story moment in Romancing Saga 2. Right? 2?
Yeah, the mermaid.
Yeah,
thing.
with the mermaid, yeah. And one of the most fascinating conversations I've ever had is someone who also, like, really appreciates the history of stuff. Like, Lucas is, if I ever want to know something and I don't know it, Lucas is the first person I go to.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. It's all good. It's all good. Will is the type of person who I go to Will's writing for really clever turns of phrase. I really love the way that he frames his discussions of things. So, like, go check out his, I think one of the latest examples of this is, like, your Dynasty Warriors, I forget which one it was.
Origins.
Dynasty Warriors Origins. Like, that whole review is just, like, really nice turns of phrase. There's also an example of that in our Skybox piece. Like, it's so fucking easy to have standards. You know, there's a lot of jokes about, you know, waypoint and all these sorts of things. I like the way that he kind of examines things in a more kind of academic sense, in a more, I don't know. I like the authoritative tone. That's something that I go to Will for. And obviously, you know, he talked about how Lucas is like the premier RPG sicko. Will is, he didn't give himself his own flowers because, you know, that's not his place to do so. It's our place to do so. He's fucking fighting game Disgusto. Like, he's a sicko of the highest order. Hey, threaten somebody out in the wilds, you know, talk trash about some of his friends. He's going to say, hey, first to 10 me in any fighting game of your choice, 10 grand on the table, baby. And that's going to be payday for him. You know what I mean? He's also a complete sweetheart, and I love him very much. And so there you go.
I think I said this to Will before, but Will writes video game reviews like someone who reads books. Like kind of in a like out of place in time kind of way almost. Like I feel like I'm reading like an American novelist telling me, you know, how Guilty Gear works. It's really fascinating.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's true.
It's good.
It's the nicest things anybody said about me in a hot minute, so I appreciate it, guys.
Well, it's good that we're leading with it.
Yeah.
One time Brian described himself as the bard party, and I think that's pretty apt. That's why Brian is the podcast guy, because he's got a personhood to him that makes up for what I seriously lack, and sort of cling to like a pair of coattails flapping in the wind.
Yeah, Brian is one of the guys I've known the longest in this space, and incredibly personal, incredibly friendly, wants to believe in the best and help everybody out, and that kind of leads to, like, he has this sense of adventure that constantly testing his comfort zone in what he's experiencing in terms of art and how he wants to talk about it, and has a real generosity of spirit in that he wants to share that with everybody else and bring that everybody else to that, and kind of like understand them in a way that allows them to be seen and see the things that he sees. And it is a really rare quality in the space, and I think it speaks to the Discord that he made for freelancers that has been kind of a meeting place for the who's who of like the games writers who were not assigned to a site, and just kind of built a community out of that. And also, like, is generous in every other way with his time, with his energy, with like an infectious kind of enthusiasm for whatever you want to do. Brian is going to be there to make sure that happens, and is a really excellent host too, which is why he's our podcast guy, right? So, he's definitely, Brian and I used to joke that I don't really want to deal with people. I just want to write and drink. And, Brian can be the one who deals with people. And that's not entirely true. I do love hanging out with people. But there's an enthusiasm for just kind of everything in the space and the people who make it that Brian has that is, I think, very unique and very special. And I'm very happy that he agreed to do this when we first started talking about it.
Thanks, man. That's really beautiful. I appreciate it. Yeah. You're gonna make me cry over here on the first episode of the show. I love it. Yeah, so now that you know a little bit more about us, jumping off, let's answer a couple of questions from the audience before we move into our next segment, which is basically, I believe, Will, what we were talking about before the show is we're going to kind of let people know what this is, or, what they can expect. I forget exactly how you were phrasing it. Yeah,
just kind of the history of the site and what we're going to do, right? Like, we're gonna,
yes.
We're going to lay out kind of our editorial mission, but I do think we should do questions first. But, in the next segment after that, we're going to lay out how this came to be, like the process of getting it to where it is right now, and what we're kind of hoping to do that hopefully makes us unique in a space that, has more really talented people than, unfortunately, jobs at the moment.
Yeah. All right, we are jumping into, how many questions should we do? 3, 5? What should we do? Keep it brief?
How many do we have?
I know we got time. We have 9. We have 9 questions. They don't all have to be from this show. We can save some of those for the next show as well.
Let's do all of them. Let's segment it into 3s. Let's do 3. Let's talk about, the history of the site. We can do 3 more. We can talk about what the site's going to be, and then we can kind of riff for a minute and do the last 3, or we can just do, whatever. Or we can save them.
I tell you what, let's do 3, and then we'll save the rest, and we'll see how many we're getting in next week or what have you. Okay. These vary from being totally ridiculous to being like very serious and in-depth, prompting like actual introspection and stuff like that. If you want to submit your questions for the show, I believe it is at the $10 tier, $15 tier. I forget which one it was. I think 15 is the written piece thing, and 10 is access to this show and the ability to submit question?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay, cool. Anyways, first question from Matt.
$10 tier. $10 tier.
$10 tier. Yeah, $10 tier gets you access to this, as well as our Discord and the channel where you can submit your questions for the show. Matt, aka Stormageddon, asks, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? So I'm going to go first because I'm ready. I prepared for this. I studied. I went back and looked at the tapes. I checked the receipts.
While we were, goofing around, he studied the ice cream, Lucas.
I studied the ice cream.
He studied the large rotund spoon.
I studied the blade that I used to put my ice cream on the marble slab and mix everything together. So my favorite flavor of ice cream, my favorite base is vanilla, and then I generally like adding caramel, chocolate, and maybe as a third ingredient, like peanut butter. And that's basically perfect for me. So if you have some sort of like peanut butter ice cream or Reese's Cup ice cream or like a pralines and cream type of a situation, I'm a big fan of all of those. I'm also, as a bonus, I'm also a sucker for like Oreo ice cream, like that type of cookies and cream ice cream. Fantastic. Also, those shakes are like unreal. That's my answer. Well, what you got?
So I think this is interesting because it's not just about like what kind of ice cream do you like, but it's also like, to your point, like how do you eat ice cream, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a small town in Virginia called Fredericksburg, which is much larger.
Oh, Fredericksburg.
Yeah, when I was a kid. And in Fredericksburg, there is a place called Carl's. Carl's is a historic site. It's been there for a very, very long time, and they are
probably heard of his son's hamburger joint.
And they serve ice cream. That's what they do. The building has been there since forever, and the machines that they use are over 100 years old. And what it does is it mixes the ice cream in such a way that modern machines don't, so there's more air in it, which gives it a different flavor. And Carl's is still to this day the best ice cream that I've ever had. And my ice cream consuming habits are based on the fact that Carl's has 3 flavors: vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. And I think they have a pineapple as well.
The classics.
But again, like these machines, you've never had ice cream quite like this. It's more of a custard. It's delicious. But when I was a kid, I grew up and we go to Carl's all the time. And I would get a vanilla malt. And malts are pretty rare, honestly. Most people will not, most places will not serve you a malt. So my answer is vanilla. And the reason, like, as terrible as it sounds, like people are like, oh, vanilla is like such a generic flavor, right? It's like, did y'all forget that like this was so rare that like wars were fought over flavors back in the day, right? Like the British did this whole thing about spices and like rare, like we take this for granted now because we have a globalized economy where you can get this stuff whenever you want it, but that was not the case. Vanilla is a very subtle flavor, but as a malt, which is where I prefer my, as a milkshake or a malt, that's where I like my ice cream. It is delicious. So as someone who is like a shake guy, I guess, it's vanilla because vanilla works with everything. You can put strawberries in it, you can put chocolate in it, you can put almonds in it, you can put anything that you can think of goes with vanilla, and it will taste amazing. So, vanilla.
Vanilla, the ultimate wingman.
Yeah, it'll never let you down.
And since we're talking about shakes, I want to mention there's a place. My wife's family is from St. Louis. There's a place called Ted Drew's there. That's very similar. Old school place, basically frozen. I think it's literally called like Ted Drew's frozen custard or whatever. That's all they do. But for my money, the best shake I've ever had is a peanut butter shake from Ruby's Diner on the pier in Huntington Beach, California. And they had added a Ruby's Diner into George Bush International Airport in Houston, and then they took it out. So for a little while, I was actually able to go and get that classic childhood peanut butter shake while I was at the airport flying, internationally or whatever. And then I fucking lost it, and it is a goddamn shame.
Yeah. So yes, I've looked it up. So if you're interested in carlsfrozencustard.com, it looks like the website was made in 1996. But the place has been in business since 1947, and
oh my god. carlsfrozencustard.com. Dude, you have to look this site up. This is incredible. I'm pretty sure the rest, the ingredients and the menu list is in Comic Sans. It's great.
If you click menu, it's literally just a photo of the menu from the store.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
But that is still to this day the best ice cream I've ever had. So, yeah. Lucas, what about you? You've had time to think.
I've also been trying to figure out if I remember if I've been to Fredericksburg or not. This whole time.
A good use of your time, to be sure.
I was really about how far away? Because it's north of Richmond, right?
Yeah.
How far? Yeah. Like an hour or two?
Hold on. I will. While you're talking about your ice cream, tell me the places you want to calculate the distance between, and I will figure it out.
I got this. Okay, so it is about an hour north of Richmond, just a straight drive north.
Okay, yeah. I'm like an hour south of Richmond, so damn, that's pretty close. Anyways. Virginia's pretty cool, like in the middle of Virginia.
Yeah.
Gets a little weird on the outskirts. Anyways. I think more or less vanilla as well. I think particularly French vanilla I have a strong affinity for. It's just a little stronger flavor. During the pandemic, my wife and I got really into just door dashing pints when we were kind of feeling down, you know what I mean? And that is a habit that has long outlasted all the lockdowns. So very big on experimenting since then. Just like, you know, what are we going to get this time? Like we can walk to a Trader Joe's from where I live. They've got kind of their own stuff. So being from South Carolina, I see banana pudding and it catches my attention kind of by instinct. So it was like banana ice cream with like mashed up, vanilla wafers in it, and I don't normally like caramel, but there's a little caramel in it too. But it was really good. So my answer is kind of just I like ice cream.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
I can't believe that you would betray us in this way.
Give me a pint that's got like weird stuff in it and a funny name, and I will probably grab that and devour it. There are joke flavors that go too far though. I was at Walmart and they had a Kraft mac and cheese flavored ice cream.
Oh God!
And I grabbed it because that's kind of the I see something really stupid like that. I'm like, I gotta try this, and that backfired on me that time.
That is also Lucas's philosophy when it comes to games. So
pretty much.
It's true. It's also one of the things that shout outs to Matt, because like I think the cool thing about this question is it became not about like what do you like, but why do you like it? Because like we all talked about, like Brian talked about, he likes to make stuff. Lucas talked about the pandemic. I talked about like the place that I went to when I was a kid, right? So like there's a sense of like it's not just about, like most things, right? In games too, and any other form of anything, is not so much what the thing is as when you came into contact with it and how that continued in your life. I'm going to go mix another drink. So Brian, read us another question. I'll still be able to hear it. But,
I will. This question is from Murph04.
Murph.
So it's going to be good. And this is a very like pointed question about our criticism and our approach to criticism.
Oh, cool.
I love this question, by the way. So Murph04 asks, do you feel you review a game negatively more for the presence of bad, things that frustrate or offend you, or the absence of good, being uninspired or boring? So I'll give you guys some time to think about that. I will tell you, it depends. The real answer is both, but for me personally, it depends on the degree to which each one is present. and I'll explain what I mean. So, a game that I reviewed a while back was, I believe, Momodora 4, Reverie Under the Moonlight. That is a Metroid-style game that is really, really fun, adorable, very cute. The one problem it has is it has instant death pits that you can fall into. And I hate that.
In a search action game?
And that became like the... It's like if you have like a favorite pair of shoes, but every time you put on your favorite pair of shoes, there's like a splinter somewhere. There's a splinter somewhere hidden in the sole of this shoe, and you can't find it, and you can't get it out. So it's just constantly bothering you every time you're enjoying this incredible pair of shoes. That's what that feels like. So if there's something like that that stands out because everything else is good, there, and then the contrast is what stands out to me. So then I'm typically going to be reviewing something negatively because of the presence of mistakes that it's making, things that are bad. Something that Will and I talk a lot about is unforced errors in games, where particularly in... this just came to mind. We don't have to litigate this right now, but like, I really loved the way Doom 2016 did its combat, and so I have a if it's not broke, don't fix it type mentality. This is also true, and this is something I know Will and I agree on. Titanfall 1 to Titanfall 2. Mm-hmm. It was not bad. It was great. Why did you mess with it? And so that is the presence of things that are detractors. That is something that I'm definitely going to focus on more in a review. I'm not particularly worried about something being uninspired or boring because I think that, one, there is a place for things like that, and two, if something's uninspired or boring, I'm probably not going to finish it, which means I'm not going to review it. Because I really, as you know, Lucas and Will were saying earlier, my big focus is finding good things and sharing those with other people. So I'm usually don't publish negative reviews because I would rather spend my time not lambasting something for its shortcomings, but rather lifting up something that I know of that's good, because there's already way too many good things in the world than I can ever uplift properly or give the proper amount of oxygen. So I'd rather just spend my time trying to do that. Mm-hmm. That's generally how I feel about it. Will, what's your go-to? And let me know if you need me to reread the question.
So, tell me if I'm wrong, but as I remember the question, it is, do you look at something, do you review it based more on what it does right or more based on what it does wrong?
Well, it is specifically talking about negative game reviews. So, do you feel you review a game negatively more for the presence of bad things or the absence of good things?
It's an interesting question. Shoutouts to Murph, by the way, the lad.
Yeah.
One of the best. I think if I was going to break it down, ideally this is all coming through the microphone.
So far, yeah.
It depends on the game, which feels like a cop-out, right? Like, it really does depend on the game. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, I reviewed Godfall, if anybody remembers that PlayStation 4 exclusive. And I was not kind. I think I called it incredibly derivative and did a lot of God of War comparisons because it does really feel like God of War. And in that case, the derivative nature of it really got to me because it was like, I've done all this before and I've done all of it better. Right? Like, there's nothing new under the sun, but I think that, placing something in an interesting way or using it in a way that's new or at least unique is really part of it. As like, bad is just like, I will say that bad is less offensive to me than uninspired. I think you can make a game that shoots really high and fails, and that's interesting, right? Whereas like a game that doesn't really try to do anything new is like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I'll cop to the fact that that's kind of a like that is the position of somebody who plays a lot of video games, right? Because we don't talk about this enough, but like every game is somebody's first game. Every game, like this is the first video game somebody ever played, right? Or it's their favorite game or whatever, and or it's a game that like hit them at a really important moment of their life, and everybody's going to feel differently based on those things. So for me, like having played a lot of video games over the years, I think my backlog is up to like 600, 700 games. And that's not tracking all the stuff I've played, just the stuff I finished. You start to see patterns, but if the pattern is really well done, you don't notice it. But if the pattern is just the same thing that you've seen other places, that feels like, why am I doing this? Right? Like I have a limited amount of time on this earth. Why are you making me tap A to run? I hate tap A to run. You know what I mean? Like it's little things like that. So for me, I think being uninspired is something that I would knock a game for rather than being bad. Because if a bad game has good ideas, at least they tried something. Yeah.
The interesting 7 or 6 type of thing.
Yeah.
There's like I'll give you an example. A lot of people really don't like Quake 4. I really like Quake 4. I think it's a good shooter, but I think the ideas that it has about like how weapon upgrades work and the stuff that happens to your character throughout the course of the game that actually changes the mechanics a little bit and recontextualizes stuff that happens earlier. All that stuff makes it interesting in a way that it's a Raven game, so Raven games are usually doing things like that, but people kind of look at it as like it's not Quake 3, it's not Quake 2, and it's like no, it's its own unique thing, right? And like part of the beauty of Quake is a series that it's always different. So that to me was more interesting than like I don't know, like most Call of Duties for the last 10 years, right? Where it's like it's the same mechanics, you've seen this before, we're just doing slightly different things with that. And that's not to like dunk on any of the Call of Duties, right? Like if you like Call of Duty, you like Call of Duty, but to me, like I'm as I get older, I'm increasingly aware that my time on this earth is limited, and I want to see new stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas, how do you feel about this question? Do you want me to read it again?
No. I think I mostly line up with what Will said, in terms of it depending on the game. Because there's been times where I'll definitely like, oh, this game is fine, and maybe I even was having like fun with it, and then by the end of it, I'm just like 8 out of 10, without really even saying that much negative about it in the review itself. And then there's something like the Avatar game that came out last year? Question mark?
The Ubisoft game? Like the James Cameron Avatar game.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just like, I think that was like Godfall for me, where it was just like, this is such a offensively generic and shallow thing. It's like actively pissing me off. And so I'll be harsher on that. But then there will be like, things that pop up in a game that like actively are annoying to deal with. And that's certainly like easier to feel in the moment instead of like after the fact. So it really depends on, I guess, the greater context and like how those things that you notice as like, that maybe look like bullet points, like, oh, this was boring or derivative or annoying or whatever, like how much of that was in the game versus other things that may have been better. There was a game I was playing called Omega 6, and it's like a visual novel from the guy who was like the art director at Nintendo for a long time. So he was like he did most of the character art and designs for like F-Zero, and he did the art for like Majora's Mask and Star Fox. So like you know what that, you can picture that guy's art. He's kind of a lunatic. He's got his own game, and it's this like sci-fi visual novel. It's full of all kinds of crazy character designs. It's really interesting. But then the combat is rock, paper, scissors. And it's like, I want to say it's like RNG, but it's like half RNG, half sort of pattern recognition. And then it's got some other nuance to it, but it's just obnoxious. Like and there was so much of it. So it was like, okay, this is annoying, but it's a visual
There's
novel.
a lot of it.
Yeah. So maybe it won't be that big of a deal, but then it's like, no, this is like most of the game is me having to deal with this over and over and over and over again. And that's just going to ruin the whole thing for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how funny the writing is or how cool the character art is, and I'll give it credit for that stuff, but at the end of the day, I think I walked away giving it a 6 because it was just like miserable half the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really is a case by case basis. But just to answer the question in as good faith as possible, I think it's the weight of these individual elements at the end of the day. It's like how much did this being derivative impact the whole experience versus it not being a big deal.
Yeah, right. Like, I think Lucas makes a really good point here that I'm just going to slightly add on to, because I don't want to, we have other questions to answer and other things to talk about. But one of the things for me is like, one of the things that kind of comes along with doing criticism is figuring out what matters to you. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be different for every single person. I will tell you that the one thing that annoys me in a video game more than anything else is making me play Simon Says. If you make me play Simon Says, I'm going to be mad. And Lucas knows what I mean when I say Simon Says, right? Like, I'm going to do this, and the answer is always this. And if you deviate in any way from the answer, we're just going to kill you, right? Yep. It's not going to work, right? And Simon Says is fun in the physical world, where you inhabit real space and you're moving with your body. It is not fun in a virtual world. And, I'm going to use Ghost of Tsushima as an example, which I know a lot of people like. One of the things that really irritates me about that game is that it does this thing where, like, hey, this dude is using this weapon. You need to be in this stance, right? Or use this thing. And if you don't do that, the game punishes you. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that are okay always. Like, if you give your character an Azuna drop, I always want the Azuna drop. Always. Mm-hmm. You are never going to go wrong by being like, Will, you can do an Azuna drop in this video game. Oh, cool, great, love that. But you will go wrong being like, hey, these enemies are color-coded. I'm looking at you, DMC Devil May Cry.
You can only Azuna drop the green guys.
Yeah, like, that's, right, that like, for me, games
when they're doing the purple animation.
Yeah, games are player expression, right? Like, fundamentally at their core, they're player expression. And anytime you take away that sense of expression from the player, like, you fundamentally failed somewhere.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Yeah, so I think Lucas brought up a great point. So again, it depends on the game, right? Like, because if someone made Devil May Cry and it was not called Devil May Cry and it was like, oh, we're just gonna make Devil May Cry, I wouldn't be mad. Okay, Devil May Cry rules. Have fun. Like, awesome. It's derivative. I don't care. But if it's derivative of something that, like, takes stuff away from you, I don't like that.
All right. So, to fully give the listeners an idea of what they are in for with this show, I am not going to choose the third question that was submitted. I'm going to scroll down a bit, and I'm going to choose another question that opens up a different level of unhinged stuff that you will get from Beyond the Skybox.
I reserve the right to abstain.
Reserve the right to abstain.
Jarrett Green
Courteously.
asks. Oh, Jarrett. You beautiful man.
Jarrett Green
I
asks.
was afraid of this. God damn.
You know where I'm going, Lucas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Jarrett Green asks, length or girth? And I asked him for clarification on this question. I said, what do we have? Or what do we think is best or prefer? To which he replied, like the absolute god that he is, open-ended. So, Will, length or girth?
Girth. Listen.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
All I'm going to tell you is that things can be too long.
This is true.
Things can rarely be wide enough. You know? Width implies a kind of grandeur of form. A pencil is long. A pencil is not impressive.
No, it is not. That is true. That's true.
You know, do with that what you will. Girth. 100%.
What Will is telling you is God, how far do I want to take this on our first episode?
You know, I answered the question. What you want to do with that answer is up to you.
It's true. If you got it like a Sprite can, get at him. I can cut that out. Anyways, so Lucas, what do you Lucas, length or girth?
I got I don't know.
You know, all I'm going to say is when someone presents you with a really impressive sausage, you never look at it and you're like, man, that thing is long. You look at like how thick that bad boy is, right? And you're like, that is a big sausage. That's all I'm saying.
Generally, I would agree with you. I do think that the first time that I went to my grocer's freezer, as they would say in the old Saturday morning adverts, and I saw the sausage and it just like coiled around and it was all one piece, I was like, that is a very long boy.
Right, but at some point that length, because it folds in on itself, also becomes girth.
I suppose if you could fold it. Yes, I suppose.
When I played Elden Ring, I got the great sword. And I kept that for the whole rest of the game. So I think my answer is both.
Honestly,
very nice.
When you say the great sword, do you mean like the Berserk great sword?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, I ran the whole game with that. Yes,
yeah,
amazing choice.
Which is the carriage or whatever, and just kept it.
Yes.
Surrounded by the rotten dogs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I put bleed on it. Hilarious thing about most that of the game, is that, and then when the final boss was weak to fire instead, I just switched it.
Yeah. The hilarious thing about that I love is that originally in the earlier Souls games, the greatsword was a greatsword class weapon, but as time has gone on, it's gotten bigger and bigger. And bigger. And so now the greatsword that is named greatsword is actually classified as an ultra greatsword because it's that big.
Hell yeah.
Which is just ridiculous. And we love it.
Maybe the answer is just that you can never be big enough.
That's true. That's true.
Brian, Lucas and I have tread down this dark path.
They have. Oh God, how much
length
do I want to reveal?
Or girth? You know in your heart what the answer is.
I will answer this in the same way I answer many questions, and Will knows this. Is it too much to ask for both?
No.
It is not. We deserve a better class of thing. The people deserve that, and I'm going to give it to them. The Joker was right. About that. about that. Not about all the other things.
Jarrett,
yeah,
thank you.
I would say thank you, Jarrett. Thank you, Jarrett.
Menace.
That one hit Lucas so hard that he had to take his glasses off. Like, I want people to appreciate. There was just a solid 30 seconds where my man was like, I can't.
Anyways. I was going to reveal something personal about myself. I think I'll leave that for not the fucking first episode of this show.
Probably
So the second episode. The second.
For the second episode.
Second episode.
You gotta, hey, you know what? You know what? Like in other aspects of life, it's best to leave them wanting more. You know what I mean?
I understood what you did.
All right. So let's pivot directly from that to Will. Why don't you tell the good people, how did we get here?
Well, when a man and a woman love each other very much. No, so this was I actually went back and I found this post. The first time we ever talked about Skybox, what would become Skybox, was on September 15th, 2022.
Wow. God, yeah, we have been working on this for a long time.
A long time. And that was the day that everybody at Fanbyte got fired.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yep. And I went and I searched this, and we're talking about it, and we're sitting in Brian's Discord of all the freelancers, you know, many of which have now written for us, which is pretty neat. And my mind went to a really funny place. I don't know if this will make sense to anybody, but I'm not the biggest Ghostbusters fan in the world, but you remember that scene where they get kicked out of the university?
Yeah.
And Bill Murray's character's like, you know, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe we were destined to get thrown out of this joint and go into business for ourselves. And I was thinking about it while we were talking about, like, everybody losing their jobs, and I was thinking, because everybody in that server at that point had probably been the victim of this, right? It just most recently happened to Fanbyte. And I posted that clip, and I said, what if we went into business for ourselves? And that started the discussion of what would become Skybox. And very quickly I went to Brian and I said, because Brian expressed interest, and I was like, what if we just did it? What if we literally just did it? Like, what if we just stopped talking about, like, maybe things will get better, and what if we just did it? And then we made a channel called Starting Something New in that server. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about what that would look like. And I think the thing for us that really got it kickstarted was how many people were excited about it. And it became this idea of, like, when there were weeks where we couldn't work on it, people were like, so how's it going? And Brian and I sat down and we had this document. We were brainstorming names. We were brainstorming, you know, what do we want to do? What do we want to run? What kind of things do we want to cover? How do we want to do this? And we just started doing it. And very slowly and very surely we built this kind of document about what we want to do. And then we were like, what's the name going to be? And we started brainstorming. We had a document literally just what if, you know, that was called What If. That was our brainstorming document. And the excitement of other people was, I think, the thing that really, like I said, really got me. Because there were days when Brian and I couldn't work on it. And sometimes that was weeks where we couldn't work on it. And there were people still being like, how's it going? And then I think the turning point for me, and Brian, you, obviously, I'm interested in your side of the story. And Lucas, I'm interested in also. Yeah, that thread was 9:15, 6:50 p.m. Is when we started that thread. Shortly after I talked about what if we just went into business for ourselves. And I'm interested in Lucas's memory of how he got brought into this, because I know, Lucas, that you were not initially one of the guys who worked on this. I think you came in a little bit later.
Yeah.
But for me, it became like when Brian and I were sitting in a Discord call, like it became real. And we were trying to think of a name because we couldn't do anything without a name. We couldn't buy a domain. We couldn't do anything without a name.
Yeah.
And we had this big ass list of names.
We still have it. I kept it.
Yeah, it's still there. It's still in that chat. And I actually want to... I'm actually going to open the what if document and just read us some of the names we rejected. Stage Clear, Save State, Hit Scan, Boss Rush, Free Play, Hitbox, Hurtbox, Iteration, On the Level, 1 Minute to Win, which was pretty good, I think. Team Select, Elements, Figments, Rising Tide, Abstract, The Download, Final Boss, Checkpoint, D-Pad, Character Select, Stage Select, Player 1, One Player Start, New Game Plus, Versus Mode, Checkpoint Reached, Load Last Save.
Yeah.
Like we had, I'm going through this, we had 65 names.
Yeah.
That we went through.
We were serious.
Yeah, because the right answer was the right name. And one day I said, what if we just...
And the right name will do a lot for you.
Yeah. And one day we were talking about this. And I was trying to think of something aspirational. Because we had this conversation actually in the Skybox Discord the other day about, when do you come up with a title? And for me, a title was one of the first things that I do. Always, whether I'm writing fiction or I'm writing about a game or whatever else. And I wanted something aspirational and big and that could cover all of us and do be a home for all the things we wanted. And I'm pretty sure this was part of the inspiration of it. I think I've been rewatching Trigun recently. And the final episode of Trigun is Under the Sky So Blue. And... which is a title I've always really loved.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about skies and, all that stuff, and I said, fuck. What are we doing? What do we call a sky in a video game? How are skies made? It's Skybox. And I suggested that, and then very shortly after that, there were a couple other names that we talked about. Multitap was one of them.
Yeah.
Skybox was just kind of became the answer, right? Like, what if we could do something that covered everything and like was limitless, right? And like that was built into the name to remind us of what we're trying to do. And from there it became getting a domain, getting the site up, getting people to contribute, figuring out what our editorial strategy was going to be, how we were going to do this, what, like getting a Patreon, getting a, which, Brian made our Patreon, getting a Blue Sky account, getting all this other stuff that you need to run a website. And that's so much more than just having a domain and place to put stuff, right? We have to be able to promote it. We have to be able to talk about it. We have to have a workflow. And that process is still ongoing. We set up a Trello board today for anybody wondering how it's been. We've been running it in Google Sheets up until 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. And
sometimes you need to strike when the iron is hot and the plane isn't going to be finished, but it's time to take off and you got to build the rest of the plane in the air.
Yeah. And so it took, we launched in May of this year. So 2022 is when we first started, or 2022 is when we first started talking about this. So consider how long this took, right? This idea of what if we...
And I had been thinking about this before. Like, the time when it got really serious was when Will and I started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, Will was talking about how we were starting with the title. That's because... And coming up with Skybox, like, we were talking about what does it mean? And it wasn't just aspirational. It wasn't just what's something that... we didn't want to do something that would appear to lock us down to a single genre. We wanted something that was a reference to gaming in general, but that was also aspirational, that was also simple. I wanted a one-word title because I'm always a fan of those. I feel like if you can drill down and get the essence of something, the fewer words, the better. Why use a $5 word when a 10-cent word will do? These sorts of ideas, like simplicity, brevity. These are things that are important to us. And it became very obvious very quickly that the things that I had been thinking were also the things that Will was thinking. which is we can't, and as much as, Will, sometimes in life, the thing that is the best about you is also the thing that is the worst about you. And Will earlier said that I want to believe the best in people, and that Will and I have also had discussions where he's like, you have to stop. Like, this is not, you can't always, not everybody is worthy of this. And so it just became very obvious that Will and I were kind of like, we complement each other very well. In the way that we go about things, in the way that we think about things, in the areas in which our strengths lie. It just became very obvious that, like, if we were going to do this, we would do it together. Mm-hmm. And it would have to be something that was driven by consensus and a desire to make a place where, I think one of the first things, this has been something that has been echoed that you put in the piece where we launched, which is like, as long as there are good people, basically it's a place where as long as there are good people to do it, there's always good work to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some form of that,
which is a Brian Barnettism. That's not something I came up with. You did that.
It is. Yeah. That was one of the first things that I wrote, which was like the mission statement for the site. Where, and if I may pat myself on the back, I like that turn of phrase a lot. Whatever the one is that I actually wrote, not the one that I just pulled out of my ass.
I can actually quote it. I'm looking at the mission statement right now, which is why I'm blasted out by Google Docs. To create a place, this is one of the first things that ever got put in the document. To create a place where people can write what they are passionate about, to be compensated fairly, and to be confident that as long as they do good work, they'll have good work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the first things that I wrote, because there was the first reason that I made this Discord that became a community Discord was because freelancers at certain sites were not getting paid on time. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, we have to talk to each other and find out who's not getting paid and get them paid. Mm. So there's always been kind of a class solidarity thing to this. And that's another thing that I feel very passionately about. And I know that I'm not the only one who feels that way. So having a place where we weren't beholden to chasing clicks, we weren't beholden to, oh, well, this trailer got a certain number of views, which means that we can greenlight a review about it. I think that is something that has to be done by like bigger sites that have a lot more mouths to feed. I don't believe in that just as a principle. I think that if something is good, it should be elevated, and we have a responsibility to curate the vast ocean of content and media and bring good things to the people, to enrich their lives, to help them recognize great talent in the space. And when things get in the way of that, I feel like those things have to be discarded. Yeah. And so this site is a place where we could actually do that. We could be free to do that because we're in charge, and this is a worker-owned site, and it will never be owned by some huge conglomerate that's going to be, beholden to shareholders. We can just always make the decision that the writer would need to make. Yeah. And where the art form always comes first.
And, I echo Brian's opinion on that, because a lot of what Skybox would become would be based out of our experiences as freelancers. So if we've talked about this before, but I do a lot of stuff for IGN. I work very closely with Brian McCaffrey, who is the previous editor there. And we get emails. I know I get emails every day from indie publishers and indie studios.
Yep.
Would you like to cover our game? And the answer is not always yes. Sometimes it's I'm not a good fit for it. We all have our niches, right? But I can't tell you how many times the answer has been, God, I would love to cover this. Let me go take it to Ryan or to someone at PC Gamer or to Shaq or whoever, right? Let me write about this. And the answer comes back, and I want to be extremely clear that I am in no way throwing shade at these people or the decisions they have to make, right? They have to make money. I understand. They're doing the
and
best.
a lot of these decisions are passed down to them by people who are higher up, and they want to be able to make a different decision.
Right. So we are in no way, throwing these people under the bus. They're
I love all these people.
Yeah, they are excellent people. Ryan has given me an enormous amount of freedom at IGN to do what I want in terms of coverage, and we've been able to do a lot of indie coverage because of that. But there's been a lot of stuff that's been left on the cutting room floor for one reason or another, whether that's, it's SGF this month, all our budget has to go there, right? Like, sites are controlled by how much money they have because they are paying people. And one of the things that I wanted Skybox to do was to be able to be like, hey, listen, if someone is passionate about this, we will give it a home. We will provide all of our years of editorial knowledge. I've been editing stuff since I was 20. I'm 35. I have 15 years of doing this under my belt. I know how to do it. And most people don't have any kind of mentorship or professional editing or whatever, right? They're being exploited for their passion for this business and their passion for this job. And a lot of the times they're just kind of thrown out there and not really told, this is how you can do this better, or this is what you can do here. And so part of it was not only that we wanted to give these places, somewhere that would write about the cool things that they were doing, because they are doing cool things, and we want to make sure that people know about that, but also that the writers who were doing it knew that they had somebody who had their backs, right? That was going to make them turn in better work, that was going to push them to do better work and support them through that process. And that was, I've said the word aspirational a lot, but that was what I wanted Skybox to be from the jump, right? And that's the editorial philosophy that I've tried to kind of push through the site, is that we don't say yes to everything, and if we do say yes, there's a threshold we expect you to hit, and if you can't hit it on the first draft, that's okay. Not everybody can, right? I've had first drafts where I've needed heavy editing, but we want to help you get there, right? And we want to make it so that when you sign your name to a piece that you publish for us, you're proud of it. And I felt that there were very few places doing that work. And when we started this, we talked about Fanbyte closing. Fanbyte was one of those places. And then we launched on May 1st. And we'd planned to launch on May 1st. I think we'd been saying it for 3 weeks at that point. Like May 1st, yeah. We finally got the site up. And we had delayed, actually, to May 1st. Initially, we were going to launch earlier, and then just stuff happened and we couldn't do it. And I remember getting out of my car. I was teaching at Purchase College at the time, and I was on my way home because I knew I had to write up the welcome statement for the site. And I'm walking up to my apartment, and I'm looking at the news just because, I'm walking to my apartment, I'm bored. Polygon is sold to Valnet. Everybody's fired. Giant bomb. The entire staff has been laid off, right? And we had I want to say a 3-hour it wasn't 3-hour discussion, but we had a discussion about should we do it today? A lot of people just lost their jobs. We don't want to seem like we're vultures, And there was an outcry from people on social media about it doesn't have to be this way.
No.
And I think that was part of what convinced me that it has to be today, right? If nothing else, we can prove that it doesn't have to be this way. We can be a glimmer of something that can be better. And that decision was ultimately really good. And it took us a couple hours to get there because initially we were going to delay over the weekend, and then we decided not to. And we
put it to a vote early on, and yeah.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say we made that decision together. That's the other thing that makes Skybox, I think, work, is that we make these decisions together. It's not me saying we're going to do this, right? It's me and Lucas and Brian, and we talk about everything, and we determine how everything is going to be. And there's a great amount of trust in what makes the site work, and faith in each other, and faith that we're going to make good decisions and communicate. And we are going to argue, we are going to fight. It's happened, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's built on an enormous amount of love for this group.
Did it happen today? It might have happened today.
It might have happened today, right? But at the end of the day, and I think this is what makes this team really good, is there's an enormous amount of love here for everybody here, right? And everybody knows that, and everybody knows that we're going to have arguments, we're going to fight. But at the end of the day, we're going to be you know what? I love you, man. Let's just get through this. Let's figure out the way through this. It's never been one of those situations where I felt like we've had something that we can't work through. And having known, both these guys for several years at this point, it's always been we'll figure out whatever it is. But I feel like, Brian, kind of you and I have been monopolizing this, and I want to give Lucas a chance to speak, because his perspective on this is very different than ours.
Yeah, because this started out as being you and I doing something.
Yes.
Together. And it became incredibly obvious, incredibly quickly, that just the two of us were not going to be sufficient.
No.
And it's becoming obvious with the amount of the warm reception that we've got that even the three of us is not going to be sufficient. But yeah. So Lucas, what do you remember about this? What's your perspective? Like, what are your thoughts about like this whole process of getting to this point and what we've wanted to do, what we've done, and anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Sure. So my memory recall isn't the greatest, so bear with me. But I think one important thing to note is we talk about being freelancers, but before I met you guys in Kennedy Group, I was the one telling people no about things. I was one of the few lucky enough to have that full-time position for a little while when I was a Prima. So I was kind of on the other side of the soul-crushing, top-down directive. I saw the conversations about, you should be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, why are we doing this? The Harry Potter game came out, and there was some pretty gnarly conversations happening behind these closed doors. But it was very, very frustrating to kind of have the position of privilege that everyone fights so hard to get, and then to like see a secondary set of walls closing in on you while the ones everyone can see are also closing in on you. And as someone particularly interested in reviews, the just number of times I had to hear the word no, or feel like I was being like talked down to or something because of the stuff I was interested in, was just awful. Not having the time to mentor people, to have freelancers turn in reviews, hours before an embargo left, and have no choice but to be like, well, fuck, sorry, I just have to fix this how I see fit and publish it, and that's the end of the conversation. Stuff like that. Very deeply frustrating. Very, very contradictory to I think the reasons we're doing this thing in the first place, because we care about like the art of writing, and that just kind of gets squeezed out as like the least important part, because gotta churn out content and churn it on these arbitrary deadlines we set for ourselves, and yada 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 yada. So I get laid off from there in early 2023. And so it was like we kind of saw the bad stuff starting to happen after. It feels weird to say after the pandemic, because, jury's out on whether or not that's still ongoing. But
we got a new mutation, baby. It's still going.
Layoffs and site closures, yada yada yada. And then it happens to me. And Gamers was the one that owned Prima, and so not only was it like layoffs, it was layoffs after a absurd amount of acquisition. So these people were just soaking up websites and then ruining them, and then making them even worse later. But anyways, I end up in the Discord channel Brian runs, and just get along with you two pretty well and pretty quickly. And end up going on like the podcast a bunch. And it just seems to be a very organic process to... I honestly don't even remember how I ended up on the team for Skybox. So just sort of like saw an opportunity to take the reins of a space where reviews were going to be written, and to kind of maybe right those wrongs, in terms of like everything has to be timely, everything has to be timed around embargoes, things have to be done a certain way, people not getting edited or learning anything from the reviews they're churning out. Just all of these things that it's like, man, I sure would love to one day be able to have that reviews editor title somewhere and do something with it.
If you don't remember, I do. That was the discussion. It was when we were talking about in the starting something new channel, we were talking about like, if we do this, what do people want? Because it was like the idea, because the site was aspirational, it was like, I don't want people to be pigeonholed into one particular avenue. Like, we're not going to do news. We're not going to do anything that's churny. We're not going to be chasing like embargo deadlines or whatever. This is not going to be a place where we're going to do guides. This is going to be like stuff that you want to do. Like, what do you want? Yeah. And so I asked people, like, if the sky was the limit and you could choose anything for yourself, what would it be? And Lucas is like, I want to be a reviews editor. And I was like, all right. And we talked, I talked to Will and he was like, that's something that I would like to do, but I'd also like to do like some, like, not managerial, but like that sort of like kind of administrative, like direction of the site, kind of EIC managing director type stuff, or managing editor type stuff. And then, it just, both of your work with so many reviews and in the way that you both do them, it just seemed like a natural fit to have you together.
Yeah, I remember this conversation very specifically, now that Brian brings it up. And I think we were going to segment it initially in two places. And I was thinking, like, man, reviews are a lot of work. And then I was thinking about Lucas had mentioned it, and I was like, Lucas... And I remember telling this to Brian, I was like, man, he has such a voice that I feel like, it is such an incredible thing to have as a reviews writer, and so many people don't have it, right? They and this is not the fault of any of those people. This is just kind of the way that the system works, where it kind of beats voice out of you, and it's like, talk about thing, explain thing, 8 out of 10, right? And there's not a lot of opinion all the time about what do you think about thing, right? There's not a lot of incentive to...
It's evolution. The space demands content, but voice isn't rewarded.
No.
Like, it used to be that people could exist in a site for long enough that that individuals would develop a following. People would know, oh, I resonate with this person's opinions on games because I've seen tons of their reviews. So I know when this person talks about something, if they like it, I'm probably going to like it because I've liked all the other things that they said were great. But longevity isn't a thing in this space anymore.
Nope.
People getting reliable opportunities to cover things isn't a thing anymore. So like, it kind of becomes, do you take the onus upon yourself to develop your own voice? And if you don't, then you just don't have it.
Right.
And like, if you want a great example for Lucas's voice, check out the like bullshit awards that he gave out in his piece on Skybox. They're awesome. That piece is hilarious.
Thank you.
And so at this point, like, I knew Lucas pretty well, and I think we like, it's kind of a mutual appreciation, right? Of like, oh, this guy likes wizardry. Okay. And several other things, but like, one of the things about Lucas was I felt like...
No, it was just the wizardry thing.
No, it was a lot of things.
Will told me he didn't like anything about you except that you like wizardry. That was the only redeeming quality you had. That was enough.
It's one of the things that you look for as a writer, right? Is like, especially when you're looking for your peers who read your work, is you're looking for somebody that understands like what that work is and what it looks like and what you're trying to do. And Lucas and I think had that pretty quickly in a way that I really respected and appreciated. And so when he was like, I want to do reviews editor, I was like, well, I have editor-in-chief experience. I have managing editor experience. I'm happy to step back and take a role where I'm kind of moving people in the right direction and let Lucas, if he wants to run a section And so when we started, we did that. And Lucas was going to run reviews and I was going to run the other stuff. And it became very clear very quickly that the amount of work that Lucas was putting in was not just reviews out of their work, right? Like he was doing other stuff. He was helping on the back end. He was helping on stuff that I needed help with. He was helping with stuff with Brian. And so, it was like, well, clearly, I think Lucas should be in charge of this section still, but he needs a better title. And so managing editor became like a very natural choice, because when I was at Film Days, that was what I did. And one of my things that I did a lot was I coordinated with the writers, and I made sure that they felt like they were appreciated, that they, that their work was being treated fairly. And if they had any problems with the way the editorial board was being run, they came into me and I would bring it to the board. And Lucas has been instrumental in kind of like communicating with our writers and making sure they understand what's necessary, and building our systems so that writers know when they sign up to write something with Skybox that there's going to be a set of rules that they're going to have to follow, right, to make the work good. And not because we want to like snuff out anybody's voice, but because we want to bring more voice to it. And those discussions have been, I think, really illuminating for me, and I'm hoping for all of us and what we all value.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and that's not to say that like we ended up not taking some things that make sense. Like, if we have something and we can meet an embargo just kind of by happenstance, then why not do it, right? We talked about review scores and whether or not we want those, and that was kind of like they have like a function they serve, so why not? But at the end of the day, it's like we also want, like, if someone comes up and is like, my favorite game is 25 years old, and I just really want to write like a capital R review about it somewhere, and it's like, yeah, obviously, come to us for that.
Yeah.
And then, if we've got something and like, crap, edits are happening and embargoes in 4 hours, and it's like, oh, well, we're going to make sure this is like something we're happy to run. And if, being a day or two later means, I don't know, 12 less views, oh well. So yeah, I think a big part of it is just, I feel like we all take, the doing good work part seriously. Like, we take as fun as, we do the shit posting and everything, and that's fun, but at the same time, it's like we take the craft and the art of it seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what brings everything together.
And
yeah,
for me, if I had to like pick a moment, right? I remember I pitched a piece on, it's not a super well-known game because it's old. It's a game that came out on the Xbox and the PS2 and maybe even the GameCube, I don't remember, called The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction.
Oh,
which I think is the best superhero game ever made. Better than the Batman games, all that stuff. And I pitched it to...
Fun fact, if you want another one of those, go play Prototype.
Yeah, and Prototype is basically a sequel to that game. And I pitched it to this large outlet, and the editor and I talked about how much we loved Ultimate Destruction. And ultimately, we decided we couldn't run the piece. Money. I was sitting there like, that's a shame. Because you can trace a line from that game to half a dozen other games.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that I wanted Skybox to be a thing was because I knew what that feeling felt like, and I knew what it was like to be like maybe one of 5 or 6 people who could write about that game. Let's give that opportunity to other people,
Yeah.
Yeah, just because the game is old doesn't mean it's not good or interesting, or there's not something else to say about it. And that sort of I don't know. The mechanics of it, I guess, make sense as far as like what the wide Google searching audience is searching for. Aren't gonna just come across it randomly, but the idea of like, well, people who are interested in reading interesting writing about stuff, they're not going to care, if you're writing about a PlayStation 2 game in 2025, as long as what you're saying about it is interesting and fun to read. Yeah.
I think there's two thoughts that I have about that. I don't want to interrupt, Lucas, if you're not done. So
that was pretty much it. It was just like, that's the ideal, I think.
Yeah. So 2 things. One, I think I heard someone say, and this has stuck with me ever since, that if people are only with you because you're getting stuff out at embargo, they're not actually interested in what you have to say.
Yeah.
People will wait for something that's good. So don't be afraid of delay if you're going to deliver something of quality. And 2, I think that, we've talked earlier about the lack of mentorship as far as writing is concerned. But one of the things about this Hulk game that Will was talking about that I think is important is that mentorship on the writer side is not the only thing that's lacking. There's an opportunity here for mentorship from the game player side. Because if people don't know about Hulk Ultimate Destruction and we write about it, now people will read it. And if they're games enthusiasts, they can go back and get a copy. If they're developers and they're maybe not aware of this game, they could go and find inspiration that will bring these excellent mechanics back into newer games. So there's a responsibility that critics have to highlight great things and to remind people of things that maybe they've forgotten and to introduce them to things that maybe they have not seen before. And so with what Lucas has done with, wizardry and first-person dungeon crawlers and what Will is talking about with, Hulk Ultimate Destruction and prototype games, which Will and I both certified prototype enjoyers. Like, that's a fucking great game. It's super fun and crazy. And, we talk about one thing, kind of a pet topic that we have is like some video games are toys and some video games are art. Sometimes they're both, but it's always great when you just get a super fun toy. And that's what these are. But there are all sorts of great old toys that they just don't make anymore. And people don't realize ever existed. And by bringing that forward, instead of chasing ad revenue or clicks or, appeasing shareholders, we can do something better to help nudge the industry into a better direction. And that's kind of another thing that was really important. It's not just to give the writers something to do. It's to be, they say be the change that you want to see in the world. And we're putting our money where our mouth is. We've spent money on this and people are showing up. I made the Blue Sky account, and within like 24 hours, it was at like 1K followers. So like we struck when the iron was hot. People resonate with what's going on, and we're really happy that you have joined us here too.
Yeah.
I may actually put this episode out, wide so that people can see it and kind of understand what we're about. I don't know. We'll have to talk about this after the fact, but I'm really heartened by the stuff that we have heard from our readers, the stuff that we have seen as far as our reception, and the people who have already showed up to the Patreon.
Yeah. And I want to speak on the thing that Brian just said, because it's not just about doing good work about a game that might be old, right? I come at this from the perspective of somebody who grew up. My father has every issue of Wonder Woman ever printed, ever. Even the ones that don't say Wonder Woman. That's Sensation Comics All-Star 8 first appearance, And he collects old cars. And my family is not rich. They just kind of got into this at the right time and inherited some of these cars. Because that's an expensive hobby. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is that when you grow up in that mindset of these things have value, long after they're expired, right? Like, we don't think about, oh man, like, that's a 1970s Chevelle. It's cool because it's cool, right? Like, unless you're in that headspace, you don't think about that. To come out of that headspace and to realize how important history is, if you trace like John DeLorean's car designs back far enough, you can understand the modern muscle car, right? Like, that's just, you have to understand how that is. And with games, you see design choices and you see inspiration and you see a bunch of other things that just happen. And those things don't come out of a vacuum. They come out of things that came before. And our job as people who write about this hobby and any of the kind of thing is not only to show people, like, this is what the good stuff is, but this is something that you should pay attention to because it had an impact on all the things that came after it. So, if we can do that, then if we can get people playing Hulk Ultimate Destruction or Wizardry or any of these older games that have had such a massive impact, even in ways you don't think about or see, then we can maybe move the needle for the kinds of games that people want to talk about and the kinds of games that get made.
That's some good shit.
Yeah. I just want, like, people to encourage people to give more of a shit, generally speaking. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. There's an episode of Into the Skybox that I have going up soon with Thomas Wilde that is about a lot of this. We're very passionate, which is, it takes a lot of passion. It takes a lot of hard work to do what we're doing. And yeah. That's kind of all I have to say about that. I don't know if we want to wrap that for the first step. Call it there.
I'm good to call it there if you guys are. But anyway, I guess what I'll say is, like, as my sign off for this, aside from like the, hey, this is where you can find us, is this is what we're about. One of the things that I wrote in that very first Skybox piece was our promise is that we will never bullshit you.
Yeah.
We will never fuck with you. We will never tell you something that we don't believe. We are never going to gas something up because it's new and hot and whatever. Right? Anything that you see at Skybox is because somebody wanted to write about it. Everything that you see at Skybox is because it's something wanted to write about it or talk about it with Brian, or we wanted to do a stream or whatever. Right? Like, this is a passion project. This isn't about what can we sell or what does the audience want. The biggest thing that I've learned over the course of my life has been that you don't know what you want until you get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How are you going to know that? Somebody points you in the right direction.
Yeah. And that is the mantle of responsibility that we are taking upon ourselves with a degree of seriousness that I find frankly exciting. I mean, Will knows this. Because I've been saying it, and Lucas knows this too, because I tell it to everybody. Like, the thing that I want to do in life is find cool and good things and share those things with the people that I care about, which is everyone, because I care about everyone because I'm a sap.
It's true, he is.
Because I'm a sentimental old fool. But anyways.
Oh, and, before we do the sign-offs, we want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed to us on Patreon and supported us. Your support is what allows us to do this. Thank you so, so much for giving us your trust. We really appreciate it. And we'll try to do right by you for as long as we can make this run, which we hope is for a very long time. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We love you all. Thank you for the support. Thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of Beyond the Skybox. I'll just do a quick rundown of where you can find us. You can find Skybox on Blue Sky at skyboxcritics.bluesky.social. That's probably going to be changing soon, but I will let you all know if that happens. You can find the website at skyboxcritics.com. You can find the shows. Right now, the only show that is forward-facing and free for everyone is Into the Skybox, where I sit down. It is a behind-the-scenes show where I sit down with our writers and talk about their pieces, talk about their process, and stuff that maybe got left on the cutting room floor, larger discussions that kind of their piece fits into, discussions of that sort of thing. I also write a weekly column or bi-weekly. It depends. There's a lot of moving pieces going on right now, but my column is called Brian at Large. I have one about Monster Hunter Wilds. I have one about Doom and being a new father. And I got one that's coming out soon that is about fighting games and how I feel like we are kind of in a modern renaissance of fighting games, perhaps a new golden era. At least that's what I think. You can find me personally on Blue Sky at Brian Barnett, BrianBarnett. And yeah, we're going to have stuff going up at skyboxcritics.tv on Twitch, or twitch.tv/skyboxcritics, youtube.com/skyboxcritics. I'm going to be making other stuff, but yeah, check out the patreon.com/skyboxcritics. And that's it for me. Will, where can people find you?
Obviously, you can find me on skyboxcritics.com. But more generally, you can find me anything that I'm working on at Blue Sky, at Edgar Allan Bro. And you'll see stuff up this week from IGN, Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon. I'm writing about that. And some other things as well. Obviously, whatever the boys are doing here, I'm happy to promote. And whatever our writers are doing here, I'm happy to promote. We have some really incredible pieces that are in the pipe, and I hope you guys will stick around and do those. But if you're ever looking for where I am, I'm at Shack News. I'm at IGN a lot. I'm here. But if you're ever curious, Edgar Allan Bro on Skybox Critics will let you know what I'm working on. Lucas, what about you?
Yeah, of course, Skybox. Look at everything Skybox. I'm on Blue Sky at Hokuto Lucas. That's HOKUTOLUCAS. I write a shitload of reviews for Shack News, particularly. Write a little bit at Restart as well. But yeah, you follow me on Blue Sky, you'll see whatever I'm up to. But of course, we want to emphasize Skybox and everything we have done there so far, and everything we will continue to do.
Ah, man. Good feeling.
First show in the books, baby.
First show in the books. Many more to come. Thank you all for joining us. I've been Brian Barnett. This is Skybox Critics. This is Beyond the Skybox. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay safe out there. Till next time, we're out.
Peace.
Goodbye.